All right, what up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm joined here by my dad and also one of my best friends and my co-host of the podcast, Ryan. And we're about to talk about the Game 5 of the Spurs Thunder series. The game just wrapped up like 10 minutes ago. We stopped watching once Bismack Biyombo and Mason Plumlee were subbed into the game. But yeah, just going into it, I was thinking like the game's going to come down to which of the stars ends up playing better between Shai and Wemby. And I think it was pretty clear from this game that Shai just kind of outplayed Wemby. Not to say that Wemby played bad by any standard, but it wasn't one of his good games. And he also just wasn't aggressive throughout the game, and he wasn't really looking for his spots like he was in some of the other games. I think it just came down to that. Shai didn't have an amazing game either, but he was able to kind of shoot his way through some of those misses, also get to the line like he normally does and put pressure on the Spurs guards. That was a big thing for the Spurs at the end of the game. Stephon Castle and one of the other players, I think Keldon Johnson, was in foul trouble. So that kind of put pressure on them even towards the end of the game and kind of had them off the court in a pivotal position. And that's the reason the Thunder were able to pull it out. They also had a great run at the end of the third quarter that kind of sealed the deal for them. But I'm going to pass it off to my dad, and he's going to talk more about it.
What's up, guys? Just to tag along to what you said, between the two stars, obviously SGA, he had a better game. Wemby was a little bit, he was playing a little bit timid, wasn't being aggressive. I think he was like 0 for 5 from 3-point territory. He was just jacking up shots. He wasn't effective tonight. He still had 20 points, but it wasn't like the impactful points, I think. I think going into the game, I thought, I was pretty certain that SGA or the Thunder were going to draw more fouls. They were going to get more calls, and that happened. I thought the OKC bench was going to play better. I thought their shooters were going to hit shots that they missed in San Antonio. That happened. But the other thing that stands out to me is that, man, the main guys on San Antonio just didn't show up tonight. Fox didn't have a good game. What's the name? Harper didn't have a good game. Castle had 24, but it wasn't. It was, like I said last game. It was just a quiet 24. I feel like it wasn't impactful. And they, aside from Champagny, they didn't shoot the three well. So they should have came out more aggressive defensively, and it didn't happen. They didn't play with the desperation that they needed to play with, and I think that was it right there. They pull close in the fourth quarter, and then McCain hit some big shots, and so they ended up winning by 13. But I think some of this stuff you could have predicted was going to happen. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that, I think Stephon Castle, he's a great player, obviously, and he's young. But I think some of the things is he doesn't always make the smartest decisions. I think just the way he was guarding Shai, where he is a really good defender when he is on Shai, but he gets too aggressive and he goes for too many steals, where it's like you already know this guy's going to draw fouls on you throughout the game. You can't afford to have like a reach-in foul or a kind of just like a bump at half court. You can't afford to pick that up, especially in a guy like Shai. That's like 2 points at the free throw line. But yeah, Ryan, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of adding on to your point, I think today was not the first time, but one of the very few times all playoffs that the Spurs youth really showed. And obviously they jumped out to that early lead, but I think we all knew it was unsustainable. Champagny was on a heater that he hasn't been anywhere close to throughout the entire playoffs. And I think really past that point, like the midway point in the first quarter, it was really sloppy. Like Castle he only had 3 turnovers, but watching the game, you could tell a lot of his handles were loose. He wasn't making great reads. There was a lot of bad passes to Wemby that he kind of got bailed out on. And Fox, really until the end of that third quarter, was a non-factor in almost every facet of the game. And he's supposed to be one of their more experienced players. So I think with that, along with the chippy fouls and all those things combining, I think it was just from the jump, the Thunder massively outplayed them, and that's honestly just a testament to the roster they have and what Sam Presti has built. Like being down J-Dub and AJ Mitchell still, obviously it was a very good bounce back game for Shai to be able to kind of get past those mistakes he made last game, and Dagnall and the whole team did a good job adjusting to those and being able to build off of those. Part of it was because they made a lot more threes, obviously, but you could really tell they were a lot more focused and desperate throughout the entirety of the game. And I think it's going to be hard to replicate that going back to San Antonio, but if they're able to start on that much of a high note, I think the series will be over in 6 no matter what. But it'll be interesting to see what the Spurs do to kind of adjust and combat a lot of those things that went wrong.
Yeah. And I was actually really impressed by the Thunder big man, Chet and Hartenstein. I know obviously Chet hasn't had the greatest series going against Wemby, but I think today he kind of was able to figure out what he can contribute to the Thunder lineup, even if he's not, like the main scorer, like scoring a bunch of points or, getting blocks on Wemby. He still has a good role on the Thunder, especially with J-Dub gone. And he kind of needs to just like continue to mold into that role and still play hard and take things personal and like put up a fight, even if he's not going to be the better of the two between him and Wemby. And Isaiah Hartenstein, I mean, anytime he gets the ball in that little short post, that little like mid-range and that left-handed sky floater, it's like an automatic 2 points. But kind of shifting gears now, obviously the series is not over. Thunder up 3-2. But, I mean, we might project the Thunder to win. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think is going to happen in the next 1 or 2 games of the series? And then also, what do you think about the Knicks sweeping the Cavs, first of all, but then that matchup between the Knicks and whoever makes it out of the West? Start with you.
Okay, so this series, I don't think it's over yet. I think San Antonio is going to win the next game. Again, home court is big. Obviously, both teams have won on the road, but I think they'll make some adjustments. And again, it's the shots that don't fall in a loud opposing arena sometimes fall at home. And I think the Spurs will play with the desperation that they need to play with. And when they play that way, they look like a completely different team. So we've seen like different versions of both teams. So I think this series is going 7 games. And then if it comes back to if and when, I think it's going to be when. It remains to be seen what happens. Now, as far as I think you asked about what's happening in the East or the Knicks advancing. I think after Cleveland lost that first game where they were up 20 points or whatever they were up, they mentally broke and so I think the Knicks played a broken team after that game 1. I don't think the Knicks were really challenged. I even with Philadelphia, they beat Philadelphia the previous round, right? I don't think they weren't challenged in that series. The Knicks haven't really been challenged in the postseason. Whichever one of these teams, I believe, that comes out of the West is going to win. Is going to win the title. I know the Knicks look good, but they had a very favorable matchup, in my opinion, with Cleveland. Cleveland's backcourt was just horrendous defensively. And they had some, their bigs are good defensive players, but their backcourt was just terrible defensively. So my prediction is this series, the Western Conference Series, goes 7 games. I don't know who's going to win it. I would give the nod to OKC because it'll be a home game for them. And they have experience. They're the defending champs. But and then I think what happens in the finals is that most likely OKC repeats as champions. That's what I think happens. And I think it's part of it is because the Knicks haven't really been challenged. Yeah. And they're going to face a really, really, really good team, a team that's actually better than them. So that's it.
Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think this current series is going to go to 7. But I'm also leaning towards OKC, and I think even without the experience or home away factor, I think just watching the level of play from their depth consistently throughout the series, obviously with the exception of last game, but that was kind of, I would say it was kind of a fluky one where you knew the Spurs were going to come out really desperate, really aggressive. Home court refs were going to be a little more on their side. So I'm kind of not really factoring in that as much, but I'm looking more at Caruso games 1 through 3 and game 5. Excellent, really showing why he's maybe the greatest role player of this decade.
Yeah.
I mean, proving he's been able to do it with every team he's been in on. Every time he's on the court, you see his impact on both sides immediately. It's just really cool to see. And as a Laker fan, it's like you watch this and you wonder what Rob has been doing all these years at the helm with the stuff he's prioritized. But I would lean OKC in 7, especially if they can get one of their reinforcements back. Like, they've been doing this without a second really real creator. So yeah, I will lean OKC in 7. And I also agree in the finals, if they were to get there, they will be the Knicks, probably in 6. And that's not a slight on the Knicks. They've had an amazing season, great story, but I think they just fall short in terms of their ability to match up with the length and size of OKC, especially with Brunson being their main guy, right? Amazing player, but when you're going from being guarded by Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and Max Strus to Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, like, it's a completely different ball game. And I think they'll be able to give them some trouble with Cat's ability to extend the bigs out on the perimeter and open up a lot of the lanes that a lot of teams can't do, that don't have that extremely good stretch big threat. But ultimately, I think the Thunder are too good. They're too deep. I did pick them to lose to the Celtics in the finals when I filled out my initial bracket, but thankfully we were able to throw that into the dump, and just being able to watch these games and analyze it, I think I would be really surprised if they don't repeat as champions.
Yeah. I was big on the Celtics too, I can't lie. But yeah, I'll start with the East. I mean, I think first of all, is focus on the Cavs. I mean, they just got to blow their whole team up. I mean, Harden and Mitchell, like, Harden's like, what, 36, Mitchell's 31. Like, they're not, nothing's happening over there. So they should probably just try to trade away, like, their old guys, maybe try to rebuild around Mobley. But yeah, I wouldn't say they have really a chance at going back to the Eastern Conference Finals or even being good anytime soon. And then the Knicks, obviously the Knicks are a great team, but I do agree with you. The Knicks haven't really been tested. I think just matchup-wise, whoever they do end up matching up with, like Brunson's going to have a hard time. He will have his good games, but he's not going to be able to create and get to his spots like he has been. And then Cat, I mean, if the Thunder end up winning, they had to go. The way Isaiah Hartenstein and company has been guarding Wemby, I just don't see Cat being any better than Wemby has been in that position. They don't play like that similar, but I think it's a pretty good comparison. And then, yeah, on the West, I do think the Thunder are just going to hopefully close it out in 6, but it might go to 7. But I think they will get it done either way. And then I think they will end up beating the Knicks in the finals. But, yeah, do you guys have anything else?
Let's see. I just want to have a discussion about the legacy of James Harden after this sweep by the Knicks. So you guys can start.
All right, let's hear from you.
Well, that's an interesting question, because what really is James Harden's legacy?
I would say the same
Because
thing, yeah.
I think there definitely is a camp of people that have him like really high all time in terms of all-time shooting guards, like
The Matthew Boothworths of the world.
yeah. Shout out Matt. Like, I don't even know. Like, do people really genuinely believe he's a better all-time player than D Wade? Because I
think so, yeah.
I don't know. I hear that, but I don't think anyone actually believes it.
Yeah.
In terms of offensive talent and I guess peak scoring production, yeah. But when you look at it historically, it's just the same patterns over and over keep defining him in the biggest moments. And I think he's had so many opportunities to overcome that. And part of it has been bad luck, like CP3 blowing out his hamstring towards the tail end of that season could have led, if he didn't do that, they could have pulled off one of the biggest upsets in NBA history, but then couldn't do it. And then 2021, his hamstring injury. Some of it has been bad luck, but I think that's not a cop-out for the excuses of how bad he's been in some of these brightest spots. Like, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I know he has an insane amount of playoff games where he has more turnovers than made field goals. And this is supposed to be a guy who's one of the greatest scorers of all time, not just this generation. And it kind of sucks to see him continually proving all his doubters right by the same things happening over and over in the biggest spots. But I think ultimately he's going to be remembered as a guy that's like one of the better scorers of his generation, but people are going to focus on a lot more of the failures than the successes, and I think he's brought that upon himself, unfortunately.
Yeah. I kind of have a similar approach, honestly. But when I think of James Harden, the thing or the legacy I think of is that in his prime, he was one of the best scorers. And I think nothing will ever change that. Like, he can go and get swept the next 3 years, and that still won't change the fact that when he was great in his prime, he was great and no one could stop him. And I think that is his legacy, and that's probably how he wants to be remembered. I mean, he can't really be remembered as a winner at this point. I mean, he hasn't won much, and he hasn't been able to see success in the playoffs. A lot of that is due to, his defense and kind of his effort levels on both sides of the ball. I do think it's funny, though, how I feel like analysts, like when I'm watching ESPN or something, they try to pretend like James Harden's like a decent defender or like he gives effort on defense, which, like, if you watch the game, is just not true at all. Like, I don't know what they're watching, or like he doesn't even like sit in his stance or like put his hand up. Like, it gets to that kind of point. But I mean, maybe he is a little slightly bigger, can take a few hits, but I just don't see it at all. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it. Obviously, he was a great scorer. He is a great scorer. Will be remembered as that. Definitely not a winner. But I guess to me, it's like how quickly will people forget him? And you can go back 10 years. Or, maybe 10 years ago there was some players that were good players, and what do you remember them? Do you remember how good they were? They were good players. They're good scorers. Just an example would be somebody like DeMar DeRozan or somebody like that, or Zach LaVine or somebody like that, where in a few years, people aren't really going to remember those names just because they didn't win. I think James Harden obviously is a better scorer than both of those guys. But for instance, when he got traded to the Cavs this year, there was a lot of talk about how Cleveland was going to be a real threat in the East, and maybe they were in the early rounds, and then we saw what happened with the Knicks. When James Harden isn't scoring, he isn't really doing much of anything else. And to me, the reason I ask that question is because I'm kind of old school, right? And I think basketball players should play both ends of the game of the court. And the game has changed a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that's me being an old head. I don't think that's the case, because there's a lot of good players that play both ends. And I always thought, like, oh, this is a guy who just wants to score, and because scoring is sexy, right? So like playing defense isn't sexy. But somebody's got to do it, right, for a team to be successful, and try to give some effort. And I don't think he's ever really given any effort in playing defense. So that's why, to me, it does hurt his legacy, because when he doesn't score, he just looks like a terrible basketball player, and that's what you'll remember. Oh, like he flamed out in this series, or he flamed out in another series, and he went from team to team. And there's other players that are like that too. I'm not going to mention names because I want to keep it. I want to stick to James Harden because he just ended up being swept. But so I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah. And before we wrap things up, I kind of have two things to say on that. Yeah, kind of what you said. I feel like James Harden might be one of those guys where in 10 years we're explaining to our kids, like, oh, yeah, like, you don't know nothing about James Harden in his prime. They're like, oh, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. maybe more than 10 years. But yeah. But then the next thing is you talking about being a basketball old head kind of reminded me of the stuff you used to say, but also kind of makes me think, like, when we're watching this series, the Spurs Thunder series, it's like the first extended NBA games that I've watched with you where you haven't been like, oh, like this new generation of basketball, like it sucks, like all that stuff. I feel like that's like you say that for like a lot of different games and for good reason, especially regular season games. No one really tries, but this like last like 5 games of basketball has actually been like extremely fun to watch, and like both teams, like whether they play good or bad, like they're playing extremely hard. So like either way, it's like a great watch, I feel like. But yeah, that just about wraps it up though. Let us know what you think of the games in the comments. We might be here after game 6. Who knows? But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.